Hello, my name is Lindsay Shuck with Family Office Networks. Thank you for joining the FON webinar series today featuring Regenerative Medical Solutions. I would like to welcome our speaker, Tony Colton, President and CEO. Tony is experienced in startups, an attorney, and CPA. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A. Please use your chat option to send your questions over at any point during the presentation so Tony can answer them accordingly.
Thank you very much. We're very excited today to present a revolutionary cure for the world's fastest growing disease. 500 million people in the world that have this disease. The disease is over 20,000 years old, and there's never been a cure until now, a total cure. There's been a lot of treatments, there's a lot of monitoring, there's a lot of insulin providing companies. We're going to use the human body itself. How we're doing this is to use the body to create a stem cell. We take the white blood cells from a blood draw and create from that a stem cell, in which case we create a beta cell, an islet-like cluster we call these, that we will implant into the patient. Many families are afflicted with diabetes, including our own. I personally have diabetes. My sister has diabetes. She calls me every day when we're going to cure this horrible disease. We're privately owned, and we operate out of Madison, Wisconsin. Why Madison, Wisconsin, you may ask? That's where stem cells were invented. And our Dr. Odorico started working on a cure with stem cells in the mid-90s. And he had the good fortune of meeting the father of stem cells, Dr. Jamie Thompson, in 1995. And around him, we built a team of experts. We'll get into who those folks are in a second. And for this particular niche, we have what I would call a dream team. And we have all the bases covered. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see that's Dr. John Odorico, MD, which is a very good thing. You see, he's a practitioner. He's not a total theoretical person, as a lot of doctors in this field are. He actually sees patients on a day-to-day basis, and he has had over the course of his career thousands of diabetics as patients. So he started out that way, but then was so frustrated without a cure for diabetes that after he worked in inventing stem cells, he devoted the rest of his career to curing the disease. That's me in the middle there. I'm a CPA, I'm a lawyer. I have a master's degree in taxation law from DePaul University. I started my career with Ernst & Young, and then I went to Northwest Industries. I headed up their venture capital division, and then I started a couple high-tech companies. The last one was a database company. I started with $4,000 and sold for $58 million just before starting RMS with Dr. Odorico. Now, Praveen, he's a cellular biologist. He's got the PhD behind him, and he is a very, very well-schooled in cellular biology. He's our chief scientific officer. Ed Tyler, he's from Chicago. He has devoted his career to biotechnology as of recent, time, he used to be the president of R. Donnelly. Tom Joyce, vice president, he handles everything. Appointments, accounting, you name it. He does it. And Dina Cohen, a PhD, she's ex-Harvard PhD, and she used to work for a competitor. And her husband took a teaching job in Madison, and lo and behold, we're so fortunate to get her on board. She's secured over for $2.5 million so far in grant money, and about to secure another 5-6 million in the near future. And these are just some of the folks on our team. There's some more. Amber Mayall, she's in charge of the lab day to day and the keeper of our formula that converts these white blood cells into insulin producing beta cells. And then we have Gus, then we have Mike Mendocino, who's our FDA consultant, and we have a whole list of other scientific advisors to help us out on a very timely basis as we need them. There's Dr. Odorico in his lab, and there he is. He's collecting an award for the Italian American Scientist of the Year. They give this once a year. He won this about, I think, 4 years ago. It's called the Marconi Award. And there's Dr. Odorico on the right. The gentleman with the red hat is Dr. Peter Stock. He's on our advisory board. Very, very prestigious surgeon from the University of California in San Francisco. And next slide. There's some other people that help us out. Harry Kramer, he's the former CEO and chairman of Chicago. Tommy Thompson, ex-governor of Wisconsin and director of Health and Human Services. He's been instrumental in helping us get some government grants. Ellen Lewis, he former director of JDRF in New York, over 30 years of biotech. Already talked about Ed Tyler. Gary Gorman, very successful businessman in Madison, Wisconsin. Dr. Peter Stock, who had the red hat in the previous slide. James Schlick, who was with the American Diabetes Association. Graham Bell from the University of Chicago. Anthony Clemento, actually, he's from the University of Madison as a teacher, had a great career in biotech. And Sue Shun, he's also a stem cell scientist who is concentrating on neurons or brain cells made from stem cells. Here's the timeline. We started with Dr. Odorico's research, and he started in 1996 at the University of Wisconsin and met Dr. Jamie Thompson at his early lab work in 1998. And the two of them branched out. Dr. Jamie Thompson worked on neurons and heart cells, where Dr. Odorico, being a pancreatic transplant surgeon, concentrated on duplicating the function of the pancreas. Another tidbit is that in 2006, his 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and so it really spurred his desire to find a cure. And he was already 10 years into the project, and then lo and behold, his daughter comes up with type 1 diabetes. So more doctor to find a cure when his own daughter has it. And then in 2012, RMS fund Puerto Rico out of the lab, accelerated the research and built a team around it, was full-time developed to creating this remarkable cure. And late last year, we have the cells such that they will cure a human. And we're going to go into phase 1 next year and prove that. We have a meeting upcoming soon, and we'll start with 12 patients and cure them of diabetes in our half-hour procedure. First, drawing their blood. Secondly, creating beta cells from stem cells, and then in a half-hour procedure, injecting them into the patient, wake the patient up in a half an hour, and they're cured of diabetes. Now, this is very similar, almost identical to a current procedure that works. Dr. Odorico and others throughout the world have been curing people of diabetes using cadaver islets. Somebody dies and they donate their pancreas, and they clip the beta cells from the pancreas, and then we'll inject those in a patient. But that's a very, very expensive operation. You have to buy the pancreas. It's not covered by insurance, and that procedure costs about $500,000 all in. Our procedure, we envision costing about $25,000 and being covered by insurance. And whereas the cadaver islets are very rare, there's not too many people that donate their pancreases, and 200 approximately of the expensive operations take place per year. We'll be able to cure millions of people eventually once we scale up. Next slide. On the top, these are these cadaver islets that are currently being used in the expensive operation. Below is our islet-like. They're pretty much identical, and we've done all the genetic testing and lab work and to compare the two, and they're very, very similar, almost identical. Next. This is a diagram of 2 ways to cure diabetes. You can transplant the whole pancreas, or you can take these islet-like clusters and with a big needle, you put them in the liver. They actually wedge in the veins of the liver, and they actually turn the liver into a dual organ. It acts as a liver, but it also acts as a pancreas. So the cells reside in the liver. It's a very hospitable organ for these cells to reside and stay in. They wedge themselves in the veins of the liver and produce insulin. Actually, it actually works, but her pancreas is further away from the stomach than the liver, and so the cells residing in the liver, it's easier to talk to the stomach and produce glucose. It's very interesting. It's actually for these. Next slide. So the current operation that I mentioned, it costs $500,000. You can only do 200 a year throughout the entire world. With these islet-like clusters, we can manufacture these into a unlimited supply. We can make these very consistent. When you get donor islets, you don't know what you get. A person could have disease, and the person could be older, and the beta cells about not to work anyhow. And this is the height of personalized medicine, and we can generate these on demand, and it's very cheap to produce these beta cells, relative to the $50,000 that it costs to purchase a pancreas. Which, by the way, again, you need 4 of these pancreases to cure one human, and has 200,000 for a cost of 2,500 or so. We can take a blood draw and produce enough cells to cure a patient. Just a tiny fraction of the cost of the current procedure. Next slide. So what we're doing now is we're proving that our cure works in mice. We just recently cured 5 mice, and we're doing our math to figure out the dosing of cells in humans, and also we're demonstrating the safety of the cells, that they don't cause any cancer in the mice. And knock on wood, so far so good. We've done 5 mouse studies so far. No signs of cancer. That's the FDA's number one concern before they allow us to inject humans. They don't want our cells or anybody's cells causing cancer. And so far, none of that is happening. We've tested this on dozens of mice, and so we're going to start out with a dozen volunteers or patients in phase 1, and take people with very serious diabetes that are very sick, including some people with what's called pancreatitis. That's when the nerves in the pancreas just flare up uncontrollably and causes so much pain that really the only solution is to remove the pancreas, thus rendering the patient a diabetic in effect. And half of the patients will have this disease, and it's actually easier because the doctors are removing the pancreas, and when this happens, the liver is exposed. We don't have to go on the side with the needle. It's right there. It's just another half minute to inject these into the liver while the patient's opened up. So it really is pretty clever to do it that way. Next slide. This is me on the left. Here's another consultant on the right. He's the ex-corporate development head of Baxter. In the middle, we have Ratan Tata. He's the Bill Gates of India, and he's all behind us. India's got probably the highest number of diabetics in the world, and one of his purposes of the trust is to cure diabetes. So we're very excited to have him on board as an investor. This is a slide that we're very proud of. It's very, very, very difficult to get a grant from the U.S. government. The odds are only 4% you submit a grant, and we've received numerous grants. When you add this all up, it's over $2.5 million. But what is happening is that the NIH has expanded their grant program tremendously this year, and we already have almost $4 million of grants pending, which we fully expect to receive. And also we'll be filing for 2 additional grants later this year. So there was a time not too distant in the past where the NIH kind of ran out of funding. They were afraid their whole budget was going to be zeroed out. They weren't giving out grants, but Congress really reloaded them with a lot of money and back in a grant giving business in a big way. I visit the NIH quite often, and I was told by the head of the diabetes division that Dr. John Odorico is the world's best bet to cure diabetes, and that the NIH will continue to fund us. And especially due to the fact that we use the patient's body to cure themselves. We have a couple of competitors in this field that create insulin-producing beta cells from human embryos. And, there's big ethical considerations with that whole process, and Congress doesn't like that, and they already told the NIH that they don't want to give any grant money to people that use human embryos to create their cure, and so we were told we're in the catbird seat. We're the only people trying to cure diabetes that do not use human embryos in this process. Next slide. We own a host of patents. We've licensed the early ones from the University of Wisconsin. They get a 1.5% royalty when we start generating our revenue. We've applied and obtained several additional patents, and we have some tremendous trade secrets that we are not going to patent because that's actually the secret sauce. And we're holding those like the Coke formula is held in Atlanta in a safe. There's only 3 people that know the Coke formula, and we kind of adapt the Coca-Cola business model in that regard. Next slide. Besides curing diabetes, which is a very, very big multi-billion-dollar market, there is a small business that we're engaged in, and put a distributor. We're going to start selling ourselves to research companies and drug companies to test for new drugs and their effect on the pancreas. And that's about a $100 million business at present. I think it'll be fast growing. We're not going to waste any time with it. However, as far as making sales calls and sending invoices, we're going in business to do this with a very large distributor called Merck Millipore. They're one of the largest sellers of research tools to scientists, and they're going to handle all the selling, all the invoicing, and it's a very good deal. We split the revenue with them, and but we do not want to be distracted from the big prize, which is a total cure for diabetes. Next slide. Well, there's many discussions we've had with scientists and our advisory board, and we've had initial discussions with the FDA that all tell us we're on the proper track. We're not the first people in this business to try to cure diabetes from stem cells. Others have gone before us. They failed. Dr. Peter Stock was with the competitor. He joined us because the company he was with failed, and we're very sure of our course of action. And after vetting our methodology with our illustrious scientific advisory board, we had an initial meeting with the FDA a few years ago, and they were totally blown away about our intended cure. And again, as I mentioned, we're about to have another meeting with them soon to actually inject humans. Next slide. Diabetes is the world's fastest growing disease, and there's nothing that comes close. It's very expensive, toll on the world. And counting Dr. Odorico's work, beginning in 1996, we have 26 years of research into this cure. I mean, this is not something that was just cooked up overnight. It's been maturing like a fine wine. You know, something this hard, you couldn't expect it, you know, to occur just overnight. And that leads us to take solace in the fact that barriers of entry and competition are quite extravagant. And even a drug company that's got hundreds of billions of dollars, they cannot come up with this cure overnight. It's just some things you can't buy, no matter how much money you have, and this is one of them. Eventually, we will develop a single cell, which we will use universally for our cure, rather than the patient's own blood. This is how we can roll it out and cure millions and millions of people throughout the globe. And we intend to license this technology country by country so that the whole world is benefited. As I mentioned, it's very, very difficult position that these folks have spent to get where they're at. Our technology, we feel, is much better, again, because you can take a patient's own blood or a stem cell rather than the. But we started and this back too far along the embryo path back up and go with the adult stem cell use data cell. Next, got it. And we have our patents. We have a dual model. We'll be producing sales to the scientific community. Again, we don't use embryos, and we use mature cells that we implant in the body. One of the competitors previously shown in the prior slide uses baby cells that they hope to mature in the human body over the course of 5 to 8 months, and we kind of think that's not going to work. It's very hard to do that, and our cells are producing insulin and they're mature right away. So we wake the patient up and know right away if they're cured. In this fireside case, we're using what's called regenerative cells. You got to wait 5 to 8 months to even see if these cells are producing insulin. So it's kind of crazy. You can produce these similar to cadaver islets in the trillions, actually. We're actually talking to a firm to do the scale-up production for that, thinking ahead beyond our phase 1, where we use the actual patient's blood. Um, and we anticipate maybe doing that for a couple years, but eventually, it's not the way to cure millions and millions of people. And so we're gearing up to do the mass producing now. Actually, it takes a little while, maybe 2-3 years to scale up, and we've started that process, and we're doing that in parallel with the phase 1, 2, and 3 trials. So we'll be ready to go. Next slide. Exit strategy. Well, I'll tell you, this is an outdated diabetes performance index. The fastest growing companies in the stock market are the companies that treat diabetes and monitor diabetes. And you can just imagine what a company that cures diabetes would be worth. These companies are multi-billion dollar valued companies, and we would expect that will be acquired or go public in the next 3 to 5 years. If we do the go public route, we would think that it would be one of the most successful, high-profile IPOs in history, and but having such a dramatic cure. I did take the company public in 1983, and it went very well, and I've been itching to do it again. Next slide. So we have a product that can be used in a therapy, but we also can sell it to researchers. We have a great, strong team, people that are top of their field, along with a patent portfolio to back it up. Diabetes is just skyrocketing around the world. It's really taken off in Asia, in the Middle East in particular. And there's no cure. There's no cure. All those stocks that index of diabetes stock is monitoring devices, insulin producers, and so we would have the first true cure. And cells have been tested in animals. They don't cause any problems. They actually cure the animals. And the diverse revenue potential, especially with this great distribution partner we have. If we don't hit the cure, which I think the odds are very slim given our current state, all the indications with the mice showed it's going to work. Just got to try it in humans. And the only thing we're doing differently than the cadaver expensive cure, which, by the way, works 90 to 95% of the time. So it really shows that the procedure does work. We're just substituting our pristine, newly created beta cells with the cruddy cadaver islets, and it's the only thing we're doing differently. So we think the risk is we're not recreating the wheel and starting from scratch. We expect to go into phase 1 next year. This will be a big deal, increase the value of the company, given success markedly. And if you're interested in investing, contact me at that email address. Give me a call. If you have any further questions, we'll send you a prospectus. It's got all the fine details and a subscription agreement, and we'll bring you on board.
Thank you so much, Tony. And again, I wanted to encourage everyone now to take the opportunity to send over any questions that you may have regarding today's presentation. So Tony can go ahead and answer those now. Tom, I'll let you take the questions when you're ready.
Sure. I see the first question we have here is about us doing work with JDRF.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with them, but John has been doing work with JDRF for over 20 years, and they fund him. We're also looking to get an investment from the venture capital fund. We had ourselves tested. That was one of the requirements, and we sent that to their subsidiary, TD1, to a lady over there, Katie, who is reviewing the results, and we expect that they'll be an investor quite soon. But JDRF has been backing Dr. Odorico in his university lab way before we came on the scene. They continue to do that. I think he's currently got a couple $1 million grant he's working for them, and we're looking for a very sizable investment from JDRF through their TD1 subsidiary.
There's another question that came in here that's, have we done work with the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation down in Miami?
Yes, we have. We're working closely with them. Actually, that's where we're going to do our phase 1. There's a Dr. Riccardi down there that's kind of like the dean of phase 1. He did the phase 1 for one of our competitors, and so the answer is yes. That's where we intend to do our phase 1 study at that institute. I've been down there a lot, and I've become pretty close to those folks down there.
Another question that's, what is the Merck deal you have in place, and how much are you raising this round?
Well, things have happened very quickly. Well, the Merck deal, if they distribute, they share the revenue with us. It's going to start out small, maybe do $3-4 million a year. But the growth rate is intended to be quite substantial. They see this as the future. See, there's a lot involved. PETA, right now the drug companies use a ton of animals, to test drugs, and the whole industry wants to get away from that, and so they want, if they could, they would use body parts generated from stem cells, and we would, of course, be the pancreas part. Now, they're further ahead of this in Europe, and they're thinking of, the European Union is thinking of making this a requirement, where they use stem cell based body parts to do your drug. You do your drug testing. Now, we got some good news just earlier this week, where we get, this diabetes is a very big issue due to COVID, by the way. The number one precondition causing death is diabetes, actually. If you have diabetes and you catch COVID, it's pretty much a disaster, because there's things called cytokines in the lungs. They inflame and they act up like crazily if you're a diabetic, and actually That is the reason for death from the virus. It'll get you real quick. They're starting to produce statistics on this. You probably see on CNN and every TV show, why are Black people dying disproportionately from the virus? And one of the big reasons is that African Americans are way more exposed to diabetes and have diabetes than the general population. So this is a big thing with the government. We had a meeting with the NIH a couple of days ago. We actually are in the 2020 spending bill. This is even before COVID-19, where we have key leaders of Congress, including Mitch McConnell and Roy Blunt and Lindsey Graham, and also Democrats, Tammy Baldwin, Senator of Wisconsin, Dick Durbin, Senator of Illinois. They agreed. We made presentations in Washington to all these folks, including their chiefs of staff, and they agreed to fund us to the extent of $30 million, and it was in the spending bill. And we had a meeting with the NIH on Tuesday and presented all this to them, and we will get funded on a slow pay-as-you-go basis. They'll get us the $30 million, but it won't be a $30 million check. They want us to submit reports, do the paperwork, and slowly over time we can get this money. So that was a big boost to our financing. Now, before that, in November, we were trying to raise $25 million at a price of $50 a share. And we had people in Dubai and more in Mr. Tata in India willing to put up the money. And then the virus hit, and these guys pulled in their horns. Mr. Tata told us that, he's got his hands full with the virus. The whole country's looking for him as a solution. And so all that got scrubbed due to the virus. So we recently put together a prospectus for $15 just to sell $10 million. We reduced it from $25 million, went down to $10 million at $15 a share. And based on that, that puts a $60 million value on the company. Now, one of our competitors in the prior slides, Semmo, was bought out for almost $1 billion, $1 billion. And since we got this good news from the NIH, we're just going to raise $1 million. First come, first serve, $15 a share. We still believe the company's worth $50 a share, even way more than $50 a share, but we're just going to raise $15 million just as an emergency fund, since we got this great news from the NIH that they're going to fund us to a very large extent. So it's $15 a share, places a valuation of $60 million on the company. We're just going to sell 1 million shares. First come, first serve. If we need to sell additional shares, it'll be at the $50 per share price. So I call this a virus sale. A stock's on sale due to the virus.
Tom, do you have any other questions that came in?
I'm responding to another one right now, but I think those are the main ones. There's some other questions that are asking about how we're doing with U.S. and the Indian community with, assuming with Mr. Tata's investment in us.
We're doing well with the Indian community. Everybody from India knows who he is, and it has attracted additional investors of Indian descent.
Okay, great. We actually had a question come in earlier from Charlotte. She's actually a type 1 diabetic, and she was curious and she's worried about the coronavirus. And she asks, let's see, I have seen very high statistics for diabetics mortality with COVID. I am a freelancer and need to attend client meetings and have no idea what to do at the moment. Do you have any recommendations for her?
Don't go to any meetings. As I explained earlier, because you have type 1 diabetes, you are unusually susceptible. And they just published something a week ago. I mean, man, oh man, some of these people are in the hospital for 6 weeks and 8 weeks, and then they get cured. They're on a respirator. Most die on a respirator, but if they come off, I mean, they've been in hospital a long time. But this thing attacks type 1 diabetic voraciously. And again, you don't die from the virus. There's an interaction that occurs. These molecules in your lung called cytokines, and your body, if you're a type 1 diabetic, senses this virus, and these cytokines go crazy in your lungs, and you actually choke to death before the virus can kill you. And I would stay home. I'm not going anywhere. I got diabetes. My sister's got type 1 diabetes. Listen, we're not going anywhere because it could be a death sentence. I wouldn't go to any meetings. I wouldn't leave the house. I would be very careful.
There's another question that just came in about the animal models. Are mice enough, or do you require any other steps before entering?
No. The FDA is so under so much pressure, by the U.S. government. And with the new administration, they're a little bit quicker on the trigger. Mice is it. Like this, one of these competitors you saw, Viasite, they only did a couple of mouse studies, and they let them go into phase 1. There's nothing more that we got to do than do to mice. They want a cure. They want it yesterday, and we're good to go. As soon as we can schedule a meeting with them to go over the mouse study data that they told us to do a few years ago. I mean, they gave us our marching orders and said, this is how you get in phase 1. You do these mouse studies. You prove it works. And you show that there's no cancer. That's the number one thing. So we did all of that. We're ready to discuss the results. There's nothing else. No other animals, no dogs, no rats, no monkeys. That's it. Mice. That's it. We're done. We're good to go.
Great, thank you so much. At this time, it doesn't seem there's any other questions that have come in. On behalf of Family Office Networks, we did want to thank everyone for their time today and for joining our webinar. We will be in touch with all of you. We'll be following up with you individually. If you have any other questions for Tony and his team, we will make sure that you get in contact with them directly. Is there anything else you need to say, Tony, before we wrap it up?
Best investment on the planet, and you're doing good for society.
Fantastic. Well, we hope everyone has a great day, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you
very much.